Assalamu alaikum and good afternoon, everyone. I have a pleasure to introduce you Professor Rajneesh Narula from University of Reading. Professor Rajneesh is a professor of international business regulation and has been working since very long in UK and has a keen eye on the international business affairs across the globe and specifically on the developing countries. Welcome, Professor Rajneesh. It's a pleasure to have you, and so nice of you that you accepted the invitation on a very short notice. Professor, I would like to ask you about, I think we can wait a couple of minutes and we can set the preamble so that people can join us and ask questions live in the session. COVID-19 has actually drastically changed the dynamics of the economies across the globe. So it's not the South Asian economies, it's not the Chinese economy. Across the globe, there are some ripple effect going on because of this COVID-19. Yes. I would like to know more about your analysis, more about the economic restructuring, the economic destruction that COVID-19 can bring up for our country, for the region at large, and for the global economies in general. So you can start. What do you think? How deeper the impact is actually?
It's a bit hard to say right now because right now we're not even at the peak of the infection, as you know, Bilal. This is we haven't seen the peak hitting. Yes. Certainly not South Asia, and definitely also the same thing in America. And we're seeing the numbers rising. It's a terrifying experience to see the numbers rising every day, and we are seeing countries one by one shutting down. So I think that if you think about countries which are more in it, like Spain and Italy and of course now the US, we can see that economic activity is declining rapidly. In 1 week, the people applying for unemployment insurance in America has jumped from 300,000 were 2 weeks ago, then was 1.1 million on last weekend, and now it's 6.6 million. So it's increased by a factor of 20 in less than 10 days. Now, this is of course in a country where there's not very good social insurance, but I suspect that these numbers would be double. Also, like the infection rate, be doubling. So we can imagine that I'd say that we're losing about 20% or 30% of all economic activity has come to a standstill. In the long run, if this continues at this fairly low level, and we have to accept that this is a low level, in a couple of months, we are looking at perhaps losing 20% of GDP on average across the countries, and perhaps in developing countries even more. But Bilal, you asked about South Asia. So South Asia, you see, has the fundamental problem that there is no social security net. Like most developing countries, Pakistan, India, Bangladesh, they don't have a security net. So there's no place to apply for unemployment insurance. Yes. You're unemployed, and as we are seeing from the videos, I'm sure you've seen people in India walking back to the villages.
I've seen the flocking the trains and the transportation system. Yeah.
The social security, the security net is going home to your village, and even there, what are you going to do? There's a limit to what can be done in these places. So I think this is not a small problem. This is probably, no one is exaggerating when they say this is perhaps the biggest economic shock since the Second World War.
My God. So let me rephrase the question. Next question, specifically talking about the South Asian countries. The next 2 to 3 months, if we are very conservative, I think this may prolong even further to 2 to 3 months. It may go up to 4 to 5 months. But let's be conservative and make a conservative estimates of the losses that we can expect in these countries, the economic losses. There is an economic loss in terms of the FDI, which the countries are losing. Then there are the export, which they are not able to make. The imports are also banned these days in Pakistan. I'm sure in India as well, the situation is same. Bangladesh as well, the situation is same. Do you think if it continues like this with the similar pace, if it doesn't go up, you have already mentioned it has not seen, this region has not seen the peak. But what if it continues at the same pace, even at the same pace, are these countries able to sustain the damage?
Very unlikely. You know, I mean, about something, the average, South Asian average for the informal sector is about 85 or 90%.
Yeah.
So this is these are, you know, day workers, and so when and they are, this is a kind of also the secret of South Asia's economic performance has been exporting, you know, whether it's footballs or surgical instruments or software, on call centers and so forth, clothing, apparel, very important industry. These are all the secret behind these industries has been low cost labor. Now, the moment labor is disappearing, demand has also disappeared. But so there is nobody's going shopping in England or in Spain or in Germany. No one is buying anything. So the supply chains have completely stopped. Now, this is these are sectors I'm you know, and perhaps in the villages you have people in the farming industry, you know, agriculture, who are still active, but this is a longer term thing. Okay, but somebody has to deliver these things from the, you know, we can't be in a society which is based on exporting wheat and rice and these things. These are very low. Even if the value of the exports go up, it's not going to replace the demand for the factory output and so on. So I'm really thinking that that the crisis is massive, and the thing is now the burden moves to the state. The state has to provide resources now, which they don't have. Most of these countries, most of South Asia, we have very poor medical public health services, but there is no question that somebody has to take care of this. Yeah.
So how, Professor, how the magic is going to happen? What we can expect? I mean, you're putting a very bleak picture. I mean, economic picture.
Yes.
I am sure this is the reality. You're not exaggerating. You're putting up the things in the right frame.
Yes,
This magic is going to happen in the case of Pakistan, in the case of India, Bangladesh.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know if you've probably heard that, in 1918, 1919, there was the Spanish flu, which has a similar pandemic, and the effect on India at the time was quite massive. I think they estimated that 5 or 6 million people at that time died from the Spanish flu. And this 6 million people, I think it was 5% or 6 million, it was 13.88 million people died. Now, this was not a small phenomenon. I mean, at the time, it represented 5% of the population of United India. And my mother was actually telling me, and it's a small kind of side story, but she was telling me that she had heard from her mother that when this happened, they burnt she's from a small village outside Gujarwala, and they burnt the houses down, that these people who died, the brother and sister of my grandmother, both died in this thing, and they burned the houses down that they were living in, and they burned their fields, because the locals were so terrified that it will infect them, that they burned their crops, their fields, and their houses. Now, you can imagine this is the kind of the same panic that it's not going to be, it's a new thing in a way. This is the same reaction that we're going to have. Now, it's the way around this is really only a matter of now hoping to mitigate the damage. This is why the lockdown is so important, because the cost is incredible high in the long run for society if it spreads like this. You can't go around burning things anymore. I mean, it was possible in those days, perhaps more easily done, but we don't want that type of thing to happen. So the state has to step in. There is no other choice to this. You can't depend upon the international community, because the international community has their own exactly the same problem. They're not going to step in, and they might supply you with face masks and they might supply you with gloves, but they are not going to provide you with anything else. So that in a way, the what is changing here is also that we are now moving to a world where everybody will want to look after themselves. Obviously, their own people will come first if they have anything left over. And it makes it difficult for countries now the demand for ventilators. I'm sure you've seen in the newspapers. Every country is asking how many ventilators are there, because if you this disease, once it strikes, you need a ventilator. And now they are hoarding ventilators because governments don't want to. Trump today, I feel that the world is repeating itself. Trump has said that all ventilators being produced by the Philips factory cannot be exported.
My God, did he mention that?
Yeah. So they want to nationalize the output of the Philips factory. The Dutch are quite upset about this because it's so the thing is that the components are coming from Europe. It's not all being manufactured in the US. So now there's a kind of bargaining that's going to take place between the EU and the US about, you can have these many ventilators, we will have these many. But the thing is that what do we in South Asia have to bargain with?
Exactly. That was my next question. How we are going to bargain? How we are going to come into this transaction? There's no space for us.
I mean, I think that
because sorry, Rajesh, I'm cutting you, because in any way we are not going to pay for it. We're going to ask for endowments or donations or grants.
Yes, I mean, one of the interesting things I'm seeing in looking at the Indian press is the number of people who are trying to come up with homemade ventilators.
Yes,
and
in
the
Pakistan
kind
as
of
well.
ingenuity that is happening in Pakistan and India. I think this is perhaps our only saving grace, is because certainly one of the things is that there is a societal sense of we're living together. People have a social conscience. Fortunately, that there is this effort to try and help other people. So I think that in a way we must turn to our own entrepreneurs and people who can say, okay, look, I can put this together. Very smart. Some of the smartest people are from South Asia. Look at all the. But unfortunately,
we have abundance of talent.
Bringing that talent, switching that talent from to make use of it in an efficient way, rather than getting stuck in the politics of it. This is going to be the challenge. How do you get this to the right people in the right time?
Perfect.
I think
we
this
got
is
a
where you
question.
come in, Bilal. Oh, here's a question.
So how our state may keep a balance between economy running and keep the spread of a pandemic minimum? So what's the trade-off? How can we, again, I remember that the game, the puzzle where people are throwing apples and we have to balance them. Is it possible for us, for India and Pakistan? Without the external support?
There is I think we should let us assume that there's no external support. I think this is the first thing. But sooner people accept this, the better. The best thing to do now really is to bring in the private sector into this, to try and utilize the resources in the most efficient way possible. You cannot tell all the people on the street to go home and do nothing. We can see the outcome of this. Mass migrations, which are not good for anyone, just to spread the disease. And so the degree to which we can mitigate this is to stop the spread. We can't stop people from going out. it's a society that you can do it for
Has to
2 weeks,
function.
4 weeks. And as this gentleman is saying in this question, how do you keep the economy running? Do what the Chinese did, really. 4 weeks of very strict enforcement, treatment,
Testing.
whatever we can do, and then slowly open the economy up, which is what they're doing. Chinese factories are 60%, back to 60%, is what I'm hearing. But they did very strict medicine for 4 weeks. I don't know how people have the same kind of discipline. That's my own concern. That tell people to stay in literally. If you are seen outside, you deal with it.
Well, believe me, it was a huge challenge for us, for the government, for the law enforcement to contain the people at their places.
Yeah.
They have nothing to do, and they're just rushing out, just roaming on the streets, and the law enforcement was just going insane. What is going on? Why can't you stay at home? There was a picture which got viral where a policeman was actually begging to an old man, please go inside, please go inside. So I know it's an alarming situation. Professor, do you think there is a hope? For example, when I see the oil prices going down, when I see the petrol prices, gasoline prices going down, I feel there might be a chance that in the longer run, in next 1 year probably, the prices may hover around this level, 20, between 20 and 40. Do you think this gives an enough room to us in these countries to play around?
It's a very strange thing. The price of oil is falling, uncertainty is increasing, but also what I noticed was the price of gold is also falling, which is a very strange phenomenon. Normally, in such situations, the price
actually
of gold,
the investors are pulling out the money.
Yes, but where are they? This is but gold is normally considered the safest bet, and it's also a South Asian obsession to have as much gold
especially in India
as is humanly possible. The history of that is not something we can have time for discussing, but it goes back to the Mughal times when they would tax you arbitrarily. So the safest thing to do was to hide your wealth in the most efficient way possible.
In the gold coins.
Yes, exactly, and we still continue to do that traditionally. I don't think the price of oil will go up, so that's a kind of a blessing in a way.
That's a good news.
It is a good news, but at the same time, we have to still pay for it. There isn't going to. What is going to help us is really, I think, the fact that the commodities prices will go up. I expect that the price of wheat and rice and all of these basic commodities will rise. The demand will be increasing because for people are not people still have to eat. One thing for sure.
But people are also hoarding them.
Yes,
they're also hoarding.
Yes, if the logistics chain doesn't fail completely, I can see that we will benefit. So that's a good news in a way. We will benefit from growing demand for commodities. The countryside is, in fact, the beneficiary of this. I mean, the Punjab, either side of the Punjab, we will see this as a boom, really, that demand for agricultural goods will increase. But this is not yet. The planting season is just starting. So I'm not sure how soon that will come to our rescue. So yes, so we will be able to balance the payments will be there, but the issue really is in the longer term, because as it is, Pakistan has a massive debt, and that's going to be really a challenge to address. Do you have to borrow money to pay? To what extent does any country want another IMF bailout? And with the previous one piling up, I can't see a happy story here, except if we take this opportunity to reorient ourselves, to think about the same way as the Western countries think about it, that we have to think about our strategic position. We shouldn't take. We should
True.
make. This is a problem. We also I have to say that greater cooperation needs to happen within South Asia. We have too many political issues there, which I'm obviously not going to go into. But it seems a pity that there is not greater trust. There's plenty of opportunity for economic activity within the region, which we have not exploited at all. It's quite amazing.
You also think, I think this may also kind of push these economies to come into a collaboration phase to cope up with this larger challenge of COVID. Economic cooperation, I'm talking about economic cooperation where they're trading with each other, specifically not only the agricultural produce, but also technological services, technology services.
Absolutely. I mean, the border has no effect on viruses. It's there's absolutely, and that makes no one cares about what happened in 1971 or 1947. At least the virus doesn't care. And I certainly think that there should be greater cooperation there taking place, the movement of goods, because the shortages of goods that are no longer available from far distant places can be replaced by local by within the region, and it's far cheaper if the supply chain. Yeah. It's a shame. I mean, one of the things I remember when I came to Pakistan was discovering that so much tea came from China via Afghanistan, but nonetheless, there was, and I'm thinking, but this makes perfect sense for it to be, to be much more easily acquired. So I think that, if not for, I think, very inept and politicians in certain places, this is certainly a time for showing greater, more fraternity, more time to put aside what I think are fairly petty differences,
political issues. Yeah,
political issues, and realize that it's to nobody's benefit for us to tackle this big challenge individually, but as a collective.
There's a question from one of the viewers that how will this pandemic affect people in countries with already fragile health system, Pakistan and all other South Asian countries? I think one of the major somehow the uncovers this pandemic has brought is the feeble system of health which we have not only in these countries but also in your country where you're living in UK or in European region. I mean, I'm amazed by the health system of Italy. So amazingly poor performer.
Yes. Well, this is the last 30 years has been an obsession in many countries to have lean organizations and to have not to plan the health system for the worst case scenario, but for the best case scenario. And when you plan for the best case scenario, there are no pandemics. You don't plan for pandemic. You assume that that will happen every 100 years, but you don't plan. It's very hard to know exactly when this is going to happen. So countries, I think, about streamlining, and this is where the fault of the British system has been, is they have focused on thinking that there is, the disaster will happen in somebody else's tenure as prime minister. And they have kept on postponing the investment. Now, of course, coming to South Asia, the problem is even bigger because there is no public health system that has been, not just there, also in Africa. Now we see this happening. So I really think that now is the time that that learning how, I think a lot of these things are about basics that they have, that it comes to education. Really, there's a poor understanding of disease and transmission, which we have. We have workers, we have people who are doing these type of things at the village level, saying no, this is not a hygienic way to to do whatever they're doing, and to change habits. Unfortunately, I'm not seeing a short-term solution. I think really, as I said, innovation, 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 and it's time to unleash the capacity of the South Asian people for creating and coming up with cheap substitutes wherever possible. There are many, many solutions that are available to us, but we
True.
have to stop looking like victims and more take the initiative in our own hands.
Mm-hmm. Let's come to the education, because innovation cannot happen without a standard maintained by the education sector. Because I think I always tell this to my students as well. Education sector is actually playing the role of mother for all other sectors. So if the education sector is up to a standard, up to an international standard where the quality of education is maintained or even surpassed, then only we can do. And I think India is in a better position to probably lead this education transformation in the post COVID period. What should be done in other countries like Sri Lanka, Pakistan, Bangladesh? I think Sri Lanka is also in a better position than all of the rest of the other countries. So India and Sri Lanka are at a much better position than the rest of the other countries, where the education sector faces serious question marks in terms of the quality of education.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I'm aware of
Do you
this.
think so? Let me put an anecdotal note. Do you think the focus has to be multi-pronged on agriculture, on technology, but not on the cost of education? It has to include the education sector as well.
Absolutely. I mean, the cost of this COVID-19 for education sector. I mean, this kind of shows the weakness of the British educational system in a way, because the university level they have privatized it, and now we are all facing universities are facing bankruptcy because we are dependent upon the fees, and we are providing a public good. That's the thing. The idea that something that we have not, but at least the one thing that they have not done, thank goodness, is to do this to the more basic educational system. And I think this is where Pakistan and Bangladesh, to some extent, are suffering from, is the absence of universal education, which is a kind of a long term, not necessarily to do with this crisis, but it is an issue that really we have to invest in better resources in having better education. And once you have bad university graduates, they go and teach in the schools, and if they have not learned anything, they are not able to teach anything.
True.
So I think really this is the shame of any country to have a poor education system in this 21st century. And again, here is a chance maybe to rethink how this is done.
Sorry, just an anecdotal question, because we're discussing education. Are students also having backlash on the online education system there in the UK?
Oh yes.
Yes.
This is an interesting reaction. We certainly, as a teacher, I find it very hard to teach online. I don't know what your experience is, Bilal.
Same here.
Yeah.
That's why I'm doing again and again these exercises, just to get used to the online education system.
Yeah, no, it's very difficult to teach, and I certainly don't think that. I think half of what we teach requires interaction. I mean, in the social sciences, it's about interaction. It's about networking. It's about, but think about it worse for medical students and engineering students.
Oh yes, engineering students. Yeah.
There is no other way to learn unless you put your hands there. You can't teach someone how to do surgery online. And I think this is going to be a cost. If this continues for longer, we will have to ask people the year of their graduation before we get treatment. Find out if they graduated during the COVID-19 crisis.
So I'll come back to the macro level of issues in the South Asia. We're running out of time, and I'm sure you're busy, even though you are in a quarantine period, but very busy doing some other things. It's a difficult question, probably. I think the answer would be even more difficult because I know what you're going to answer, and people may not be ready for that answer. Uh, the bankruptcy chances of these countries,
Mhm.
the chances of bankruptcy in this current scenario, is there any out of box solution that the international financial institutions can come up, or the bankruptcy of these countries, especially Pakistan, is inevitable?
Mm. Okay. Yes, as you said, it's a very difficult question. I think Pakistan is a unfortunately very complicated story. Uh, I cannot see how the debt has to increase, but the thing is, the money has to
Definitely.
be spent in the right way. The problem is that, well, as you know, better than me, it's the interest groups. The money is not spent in the right way. Money comes in, but it seems to disappear faster than it travels faster than the COVID-19 virus
Yeah.
into people's pockets. So I don't know how that and the government, various governments, the military, everyone has tried to find ways, but instead of becoming the solution, they become part of the problem, uh,
Mhm.
as you also know. Um, and I'm not certain how. So giving money, it's like giving money to a man who is not, is not going to spend it wisely, makes it difficult for the people lending him also. That
I got your answer.
I know you're going to spend it the wrong way, so why will I give you the money? So really, it's kind of a catch-22.
I see. We got a question from Mr. Nadeem Iqbal, and he's asking about SDGs, Sustainable Development Goals. How much relevant these will be in the post-pandemic situation? I think we should forget about those SDG goals now. It would be insane to talk about those SDG
No,
goals.
no, I think
Poverty is going up.
the poverty. There's certainly one or the. I think if I know this sounds very Machiavellian, but if we think post-crisis, uh, at least post-health crisis, not post-economic crisis, post-health crisis, it creates an opportunity for us to think about important things that we address the basic principles of society. Many of the problems in South Asia go back to our cultural
To,
issues. Let's put it that
yeah,
way. And there's the place of women in the workforce, for instance, is a very key SDG. Um, and it's certainly time to start thinking that this is something we have struggled with. You know, each country in the same way, and there is no other explanation for it except cultural. We are locked into these cultural things. So I really
ethos,
think that
values.
things
Yeah.
like this, well, it's a very key affect inequality. I mean, it affects the way in which we organize things. So certainly the fact that and as you know, the virus affects men more than women. It's a much higher fatality. So it's really this is actually
You're very right.
I'm being I this is at least we should find a way to stop excluding the females from the workplace and find a way to integrate them more closely. So at least one of them can be addressed. That's what I think.
Partially, they can be addressed. Yeah, at
We
least
hope.
one of them. Yeah. 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 Right. Right. I think so. We have discussed several issues, and I think that the take-home note for me is that things will be difficult in the
Mm.
coming times for us. I'm sure for Pakistan it will be way difficult than India, probably. I
Yeah.
think so. But India has, I think, a problem of the population, and they got
Mm.
their own issues. They got their own internal
Yeah.
issues so big that probably they may face those at an exponentially high rate in Pakistan and Bangladesh.
I think Bangladesh also is going to see a very severe effect of this.
Severe effect. Yes. So unemployment, I think, is also going to increase massively in Pakistan. At least, I think 40%. I was just reading a paper from Pakistan Institute of Development Economics. Just today, they have written an article, and they are saying that the GDP may decline by 40%. So 4.26%. Sorry.
40%. I thought that's a conservative estimate.
Yeah, that's a conservative. I also agree. It may go even higher.
You see, before this happened, Brexit, I expected, most people expect between 2 and 5% decline in UK GDP. So that's just from Brexit. So if you throw in increased unemployment, we are looking, I would say the UK would suffer from about 10%, 8 to 10%, something like this, closer to 10 than 5, I would say. And if that is the case here, with all the resources available, and this large expenditure taking place, I would say that across Asia, I know that they cut the growth target for India to 2.5%. But it was, it had been falling anyway, with 5% last month. Now it's 2.5%. I think that one can say it will be zero.
Probably negative.
It's probably negative. The best case scenario is zero.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think, as you say, it'll probably be negative. So 5% seems to be the extrapolation for India, not for Pakistan.
Not for Pakistan. Yeah, in the case of Pakistan, I am expecting a negative one.
Yeah.
So if they attain the zero, no change, that would be the best case scenario.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Professor Rajneesh from University of Reading, to join us at the Facebook Live discussion. Thank you so much, viewers, to watch and comment and ask questions. If you have any questions, you can ask us later on, and we'll try to respond. And Professor, we'd like to have you in future as well. And we'll as long as you are in quarantine, so we can ask you at a short period of notice. So
we're delighted to do that.
Thank you so much.
We could make this a regular event.
Sure, that would be great. That would be great. Thank you so much. Have a great day. Stay home. Stay safe.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.